Well, from a discipline aspect, I think he would be the right guy, but I don't think it's really something that this team would be open to at this point. He's a little long in the tooth, and they're looking for more of a guy that can get along with the younger generation, know how to motivate people. And I don't know if he's a great motivator of men, although he's a very smart coach. Brings a lot to the table. I think they need a motivator more so than anything else. Even experience. Motivation actually is going to outweigh experience at this point.
Yeah, I mean, here's a two-time Super Bowl champion. Now, in the years that they won a Super Bowl, 9-7, the 1 year 10-6. I mean, you look at a guy who hasn't had that 12-4 Super Bowl season. He's been a guy who got people hot. You wonder at his age. I think Jeffrey Lurie wants that guy who's going to be the next Andy Reid, who's here for 10 to 15 years. I would think that would almost rule Coughlin out of the situation. But is he the most intriguing candidate of who's left here? If you liked Adam Gase and he's out the door, do you like Coughlin better than you would like a Peterson or bringing back a Shermer?
Well, I actually would. I think that he would be a guy that this team really needs as far as the discipline aspect. I think this team needs and lacked the discipline last year to really be a good team because they made too many mistakes, too many drop balls, and those are things that he can clear up. Those are things that he will put emphasis on. But this team really needs to develop. A lot of the things that happened last year were a direct reflection of them not being undisciplined, not having the proper fundamentals, and I know for a fact that he will go through and pound those fundamentals into this team. They're very this team is very lacking in a lot of fundamental, basic areas, which tend to lead to the bigger things that were happening wrong on the field.
Barrett Brooks with us. So let me kind of get your take on some of these other guys. Coughlin's here today. He will speak to the Eagles about the head coaching vacancy. Yesterday was Doug Peterson. If you hire Doug Peterson, is that like an admission that we made a mistake with Andy Reid? Is that like, hey, we want to reunite with the Reid era? Because he is not a candidate for any other jobs other than Philadelphia, it seems like.
I think it's a comfort level, just because they know each other. He knows the organization. Kind of almost going to be like a Sean McDermott if he gets the opportunity to interview with the Eagles. They have a similar mindset in the aspect that, yes, he was around Andy for years. He was up here. He understands the culture of what you have to have here in Philadelphia. He understands what it is to be a coach in Philadelphia. So I think that's more so what they're trying to get at, as opposed to what he brings to the table as coaching. This is still a guy last year, the year before last, who didn't have a receiver with a touchdown last year. So, talk about from a coaching aspect, that's something that you can't look over as an offensive coordinator. You can't look past that. So I really think that it was just more of a convenient thing, respecting, but I don't think that he's really high on their list as far as a candidate to get this job.
All right, and obviously the Andy Reid connection there, and how much of this is the staff that you bring with him, because it seemed that nobody knew who Andy was, Barrett, but he had a very good staff in place, and when you try to apply for a job and you're trying to sell the ownership group, that is a pretty big element, I would assume, and you wonder who Doug Peterson would be able to round up. That might be something that hurts him in this situation, is who are his assistants going to be?
Absolutely. In fact, that's what hurt Gase last year with when being hired for the San Fran job. It was a difference between the defensive coordinator, and he wanted to keep, a couple guys that were there. They wanted him to keep a couple guys who were there, and he wanted to bring a whole new staff in. So I think that really was a major factor why he didn't get the San Fran job last year. You look at this year, I think the Miami Dolphins are going to give him carte blanche to whatever he wants. So that's why he signed there. Plus, they threw a boatload of money at him. I don't know how anxious Jeffrey Lurie is as far as throwing money away, and I think he wants to get it right this time. I think he wants to get a solid candidate, a guy that it's not going to be like he did before. Nobody knew about Ray Rhodes as far as being a head coach when they hired him. Nobody knew about Big Red before he was a coach, before he got here. I think he's going to go with a more solid candidate, a candidate that's been a head coach before, a little more experience. Everybody's talking about these, Gase and other guys. The Eagles had an opportunity to sign Gase. They just chose not to offer him.
So
I really think that they're going for experience more so than anything else.
Okay, so then you have an Andy Reid connection. You have experienced, been a head coach, Pat Shurmur. You have the endorsement from your starting quarterback. Does Pat Shurmur go to the top of your list?
Yes, he does. He's been right up there just because, that's going to be the biggest difference in whether they're going to get, Sam Bradford back. If Bradford can come into the situation, they offer him a decent amount of money. I think that Coach Sherman could definitely weigh more in his mindset as far as I want to bring him in to really take this Eagle team to the next level. Now everybody talking about, oh, he didn't have the necessary tools to take it to the next level, to win a Super Bowl. Well, neither did Big Ben when I won a Super Bowl with him. I mean, he didn't even win the Super Bowl for us. It was a solid running game and a great defense that allowed us to do that. I don't know what direction Coach Sherman's going to go in, but at least we have a solid quarterback, and we can say now that he is a solid quarterback to lead this team.
So they seem to be the candidates that have ties and have the biggest name. Coughlin, biggest name. Peterson, ties. And then obviously Shermer has ties. Of the guys who don't have that, you got Ben McAdoo, Paul Gunther. I guess those seem to be some of the other names. Is there anybody else that you like, or are those three guys the top three candidates for you?
Well, if you look at that Cincinnati team, they had two candidates. I like Hugh. I think that he would give his team a great opportunity. He has some coaching experience. He led the Raiders to 8-8 season, but that's a team that almost lost every single game the year before. So he has that coaching experience. He got Andy Dalton playing well this year. Put him on a championship type of level. If Andy Dalton was on that team last year, these last couple of games, they'd had a much better record. I think they'd have beat the Steelers twice if he was on this team. And because he wasn't there, that's why they didn't win. But they're a much better team with Andy Dalton. He's a direct reflection. Hugh Jackson, a direct reflection on how good this team is because he really got that offense going.
Yeah, all right. Ben McAdoo was another guy mentioned for the Philadelphia. How do you feel about taking guys from the Giants and just kind of placing them down the turnpike?
Well, everybody's taken from the Eagles and become major contributors. Look at Jackson left, and then he became a major contributor. I don't really mind where a coach comes from. It might be a situation where he does better just because he knows what it is to come into Philly and play Philly. McAdoo, he's a pretty good coach. He really got that offense running consistently for the most part. I think their defense last year kept them from being as good as they could have been. He had Eli playing really, really good in that West Coast system. Once he got adapted to that West Coast system, things started happening a lot better for him. They started using the tight end more. Of course, Beckham, he was a direct reflection on, bringing Beckham in and him being the key focal point on that offense. So, he's done a lot to really show that he has the coaching capabilities of making guys better. I don't know how he is a motivator, but I know he can coach.
A couple more. Barrett Brooks, Super Bowl champion. You probably have discussed and heard about the Gruden stuff. A lot of conflicting reports. Do you think any shot you see him back coaching?
A coach is a coach, man, and Gruden always be a coach. He was my offensive coordinator for 3 years, and if you look at what he brings to the table, man, he could be a great coach here. He knows Philadelphia. He was here in Philadelphia, and he wants to be a coach. That's why all the stuff that he does, more so with coaching and getting quarterbacks ready, he could come in and be a major factor for any quarterback coming in. I really think that Gruden wants to coach at this point, but he's making $6 million a year, only working 6 months a year, so that's going to be hard to move him from that. But there will be a time where he's going to want to come back and coach. He's going to want to come back and put his hat back into the game and see where he is at this point. So I do see that. I see Cowher doing the same thing. So those were actually my two lead candidates. Once we figured out that Chip wasn't coming back, I wanted either one of those guys to come.
You played for Cowher. You think that he will come back at some point still?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Him more so than Gruden because, Coach Cowher is a coach at heart. He loves to coach. He would have still been coaching now if he had a better situation with the Steelers. So I do believe, he needed to take some time off for his family, but it's that time for him to come back. I think he's going to be back really soon.
All right. That will be interesting because he's been out a while. He's been out, 10 years now? 8 years, something like that?
Yeah. Exactly. 8 years. When I retired, he retired.
Wow. All right. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Barrett, last one for you. Chip Kelly. Do you think we see Chip Kelly back in the NFL?
Not this year. I definitely won't see him this year. He's going to make 6.5 the next 2 years, so he's not really in a rush. I don't know if anybody will give him an opportunity just from his people skills. He's fundamentally challenged as far as communication skills inside the building, not just with the players, but with the front office people. You have to work well with everybody in every aspect of an organization. It's not just the players, it's not just your coaches, but you also have to work well with the people behind the scenes, the scouts, cap guys. He did that. He did not have a good working relationship with anybody in that building. There was a lot of from other players, front office people, just regular video coordinators to say he was unruly to work with. He was really hard to work with. A lot of times I had to do stuff. He would, be like pulling teeth for him to do it. Those are all the things you need to be a good head coach. And he lacked those. Those interpersonal skills that they needed.
All right, Barrett Brooks, of course, all the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl champion, and don't forget tomorrow morning 6 to 8, Breakfast on Broad, always on the Comcast network. Thanks, pal.
Thanks a lot, man. You guys have a good one.